Hello, and welcome to the Autism Resources Kawartha podcast. I'm Matt Garrity, and I'm so happy to be here with you. In this episode, I sit down with Jennifer, a devoted aunt to an autistic niece, to explore what it means to love, support, and understand from the outside looking in. Jenn shares the story of her niece's autism, ADHD, and pathological demand avoidance diagnoses, and how those discoveries reshape not just her niece's world, but the whole family's approach to connection and care. She opens up about learning to let go of shoulds, embracing radical acceptance, and finding patience in moments that challenge every instinct to fix. From rethinking school and routines to redefining what affection looks like, Jenn reminds us that supporting an autistic loved one often means slowing down, listening, and letting them lead the way. Her honesty, humor, and deep empathy make this episode a powerful reminder that love doesn't always mean doing more. Sometimes it means doing less and simply being there. I've worked with Jenn for a number of years, and she was instrumental in getting ARC off the ground. In fact, much of the content you see on our website today came from her thoughtful writing and insight. I'll admit, I had a bit of a hard time opening up at first because of our working relationship, but once we started talking, I love discovering our shared connections and the ways our experiences overlap. The Autism Resources Kawartha podcast is a series of unscripted conversations with local autistic people and the people who love them right here in Kawartha Lakes. Join us for a new episode every Tuesday on Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you've enjoyed what you've heard, please subscribe or follow us. This podcast couldn't be possible without the great support of Cardinal Home Services. Thank you so much, Cardinal Home Services. Check them out at cardinalhome.ca. Now, finally, enjoy this conversation with Jennifer. So, what's your experience with autism?
So, my experience with autism, I have two people in my life who have official autism diagnoses. One of whom is one of my beloved nieces, the elder of the two, and the other one who is a dear friend's daughter. They're very similar in age, which has been interesting because, as a parent, you kind of go through different just growth milestones, development milestones, more or less at similar times. So that's kind of been neat to compare two different children, two different experiences, two different families about a year apart, kind of going through some similar journeys and some completely different ones as well, wildly different in some cases. But yeah, with my niece, I think things started to kind of come to light when she started school. Because she was always kind of we always in our family joke and we'll say spicy. She was a bit spicy, she was, had a little bit of a hot temper. She had lots of energy. She was just, feisty, and which was great. Challenging sometimes, I'm sure, but great. But yeah, when she started going to school, it kind of started to become apparent that there were some struggles she was having that were very different to the other kids in her classroom settings. And it kind of became really apparent really quickly to her parents, so my husband's brother and his partner, that something was not jiving. Their child was not going to excel in this public school setting. In fact, the spice levels were getting red hot. Things were amping up. Things were not moving in the direction that they were kind of hoping they would.
The neurodivergent Scoville units were escalating, yes.
Yeah, because all of the, school. So it's also, I think, we didn't know this at the time. They didn't get a diagnosis officially for her until she was maybe, I'm going to say 8-ish.
Sure.
Maybe even a bit closer to 9, but I think it was about 8. And I think she has a combination of cognitive profiles, basically. So she's been diagnosed with autism. She also has a diagnosis of ADHD. And I learned, through them going through these process, I didn't even know that there were like different profiles of ADHD. So there's like the ADHD that people think of, which is like the hyper go, 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 go. But then there's also sort of a different manifestation of ADHD, which is very like almost like tunnel vision, hyper focus, like the opposite of what you typically think of with ADHD. Coupled with the fact actually also that, as I have learned, ADHD, autism, a lot of these things manifest really differently in girls than they do in boys, which is also really fascinating. And then she also has a diagnosis of PDA, which is Pathological Demand Avoidance. So, which is a nervous system condition, or I don't know if condition's the right word, but like it's a nervous system state of being. And so the three things in concert are kind of wild to witness sometimes, because they're three very, at times, very conflicting sets of needs to find, like a good comfy place all in one little body. And it's, it was pretty wild for a while, trying to watch her parents try to find a way to understand like what was happening and how could they help, and could they help, and it was intense for a while.
Hey, it's Matt Garrity from the Autism Resources Kawartha podcast. I want to tell you about one of my family's favorite things to do in Kawartha Lakes, the Crazy Creative program at the Kawartha Art Gallery. It's totally free, open to all ages, and every Saturday the gallery turns into a space where you can express your imagination with model magic. I've taken my kids countless times, and we always walk away with big smiles. I've also talked to artists on this podcast who are autistic, and I love how a program like Crazy Creative makes creativity accessible for everyone. Join in any Saturday from 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. at the Kawartha Art Gallery. You can find out more by following them on social media or visiting kawarthagallery.com. You'll love it. Was it maybe strange to see them parent, or like frankly trying to parent? And I'm guessing or assuming that with the PDA it was like extremely difficult to parent her at the time. Still probably challenging, not to speak for them, but I don't know them as well as you do, of course, but like what was that like to watch her with that PDA side specifically?
I think, it was, so as her aunt, and we live in different cities as well. So we have we're very, very, very close. My niece's mom is like one of my very best friends, and so we're very, very close. We talk, daily. We spend a lot of time together, but we're also not like in it, so to speak, daily, right? So, even if we lived next door, you still wouldn't be in it the same way a parent is. But it was really, I think for me, it was really difficult. I'm always ready, like as soon as they found out or sort of started to put the language together that maybe she has ADHD. Okay, now we're thinking maybe there's autism now. Okay, now there's this new thing that we've never really heard of before called PDA coming into play. And they started learning about that. Like, I'm the kind of person that's just like, okay, tell me the information. I started reading books, started doing research, started just like deep diving because I was trying to understand what they were trying to understand, but I don't also have the child that I have to care for who's struggling through this, right? Like I had more time, more space to like try and digest some information. It was really difficult for them for a long time. And like when she was younger and they were just learning about how to accommodate in even just the concept of of accommodation for nervous systems. Like, I think it was frustrating and difficult and like kind of scary, maybe even a little bit sometimes, because some of her behaviors when she was younger, when she was really dysregulated, were quite physical, very emotional, obviously, and like you're kind of just oscillating. And because, like with PDA, I'm not an expert by any means, but like my understanding of it and my understanding of it in relation to my niece is that the more expectations that you place on her, the more her nervous system goes into like flight, fight, freeze. And the more dysregulated she gets, and so the less able she is to, tap into that like practical aspect of her brain. She's like a super, super intelligent child, which is also so conflicting for her because it's like her logical brain can see what's happening and could acknowledge, probably, especially as she got older, right? That like, okay, the things that are being asked of me are not like, these are not unreasonable things, but like when your nervous system is saying like, yeah, but you might die. Like you could die. Like you need to fight, you need to run away, you need to protect yourself. Like it was just really, it's confusing. And I think that was the hardest part for me, was watching them, specifically my sister-in-law. I'm like close with my brother-in-law, but like we don't talk about that kind of stuff, like on a personal level the same way. Because the way that or the way that they, again, not to generalize, but like, I think there is some degree of generalization. Like when you have a child who's autistic, or has ADHD or PDA or all three, the way you have to parent them is like the exact opposite of the way you were told you needed to parent children.
Yes.
Right? So it's like, first you have to kind of come to terms with that to some degree, and then you have to make all these changes in your life to try and give them a space to find peace and regulation, where then you can kind of try and rebuild and expand. And at the same time, you're dealing with, trying to come to terms with yourself as a parent, because you kind of feel, or like I know that they felt, and my sister-in-law felt like very conflicted about like what's the right thing, like when do you push, when do you give space, when do you like how can I help her have this really diverse life, like I want her to be able to have the opportunities, but like how do you make that happen in a safe way for her? And as like an aunt, that was really changing my behavior as an aunt when I'm with her was not overly difficult for me. I'm not with her all the time, so it's easy to find that patience and that space and that grace and that like, because it's isolated pockets. I don't need the same like sustained level of patience and understanding, and just like, but as like my watching her mother, my best friend, try and sustain that all the time, that was very conflicting for me, because I'm like protective of my like best friend sister-in-law, but also wanting to help my niece, but kind of feeling like, like you guys are kind of in a, butting heads. And so how do I fit into that, like in a way that's like helpful?
Did you ask your sister-in-law how you should change your sort of actions and behavior, or how you were as an aunt to your niece? Or like you said, you just picked up and were like, I got to figure this out on my own?
No, we definitely had many, many, many conversations about it, and we still do, because obviously, as my niece grows and ages, things change constantly. And just like her needs and what she's sensitive to changes. And so whenever I notice something, or if I'm just not sure, like we would always check in. We often would have there was actually probably a good like year and a half period when they were kind of really in the thick of things, and things were very complicated because they're just trying to figure out what's happening, where that was almost exclusively what we talked about, actually. My daughter and her cousin, my niece, are the same age. They're 5 weeks apart. And they've always been very, very, very close.
Awesome.
Like sisterly, they're cousins, but they have a very unique bond. And it's also been interesting trying to help navigate that, because my daughter is not, neurodivergent, doesn't have any diagnoses of anything. She's wildly empathetic and extremely loyal and protective. And so trying to help, like we talk a lot about that too, like we need them to be able to continue their friendship. And so how do the level of expectation for two children who are the same age, basically, are completely different,
Yeah.
And so that can be really challenging too, because I can, the room's a mess, like they've just played and everything's all over, and yay, that's fantastic. But I can look at my child and be like, okay, you got to clean this up. Like, that's my expectation of you before we do X, Y, Z. But I can't necessarily have that same expectation for my niece. Depends on where we're at that day, but like certainly not to the same level. And so that was also really interesting, touching base a lot with my sister-in-law about like how is that difference perceived by my niece, touching in with my daughter, like how are you managing with all of these different expectations?
Right. I got a couple questions, sorry to interrupt. So when you ask your daughter in front of your niece to say clean up a room because they've been playing together, how does your niece take that, even though the question or the demand has been made to your daughter? How does she take that?
So usually she just, I would say just sort of like ignores it. Like she's just like, I won't be doing that, and carries on doing whatever she's doing, which like that was an adjustment for sure. Like just in that sort of parental role in those moments, being like, okay, like you have to check yourself and take a step back and be like, okay, that's fine. Pick your battles, because like, do I need to escalate her situation because there's paper on the ground, or can I just pick the paper up? Probably I'll just pick the paper up and we'll move on to have a good day. Like, sometimes now that she's older, she's very funny, and she's gaining like a deeper understanding of her own self and her own like just how she is and these different aspects of herself. And so now sometimes she'll say things like if I'll tell my daughter to brush her teeth, for example, that's like not a preferred activity for my niece. She will and has several times looked at me and be like, well, I'm autistic and I don't do that.
That's not happening.
And I'll kind of look at her and be like, that's cool, dude. Like, I wasn't asking you to brush your teeth. It's not a problem. Like, you do you. You and mommy can figure that out. Like, I was like, but
so even when you're asking your daughter or telling your daughter to do something, your niece will think that it's directed at her, or like she'll have the sense that I should be doing the same thing, but I'm not going to do it?
I think sometimes. I think it depends on where she's at, like what state of, nervous system activation is she at. Like if things are going really well, it's been like a calm, she's in a calm kind of comfy place. I think, she's able to tap into that more like sort of logical part of the brain and hear that it's not directed at her. That being said, if you're in a situation where like let's say we're trying to go somewhere and there's no demands being placed specifically on her, like you're cool, just do your thing, and we're just gonna all scurry around and like the energy of the space is heightened because we're packing the car, we're doing the things, and there's a timeline, and sometimes that absolutely can start to escalate for her as well because she's an intelligent child who can see that the people around her are feeling stressed or working hard or have those expectations that they're trying to meet. And yeah, she's very perceptive, obviously, so she can kind of internalize that sometimes. And I think there's, not to speak for her, but like what she's told me and what I know about her, I would say there's like conflict in it because she wants to help people. Like, she's a very caring, loving, helpful person. It's just not always able to tap into that action because her nervous system is just not allowing that, to happen. So I think that must be I know that conflict happens a lot in her, and that's hard too. And it's like, knowing that makes it easier for me to try my best. And like, I absolutely fail spectacularly sometimes, but to try my best to like really be patient and really try and like remember who she is and like who I'm working with in the situation, and to try and like make that space. Which is really tricky for me because I'm a very like type A, like let's get stuff done, like here's the list, here's the schedule, let's go, like kind of person. So that can be tricky.
What do you say to her when you actually like need her to do something? So I don't know, like if she's at your house and you're parenting her and like she needs to brush her teeth or clean up that room after you guys played, or I know that you guys love camping. I'm going to guess that you guys go camping together. And there's like packing stuff up, and there's certain things you got to do at camping. Camping sounds like a nightmare for her, really. Like, 'cause there's so many demands and there's so many tasks and responsibilities in a setting where you're supposed to be hanging out and chill. But
yeah. The answer is I don't ask her to brush her teeth, and I don't ask her to clean up brush her teeth, never. Anything to do with her own like personal hygiene, like short of like if she has fallen in a mud puddle or like, I don't know, something where like maybe she would like to address that, but that's really, like she's an 11-year-old autonomous human at this point. And so when she was little, probably we tried to push that, and it was always the wrong choice, always. That is just not something that I do. It's the kind of thing where like if it's bedtime, I'll say, hey, we're going up to brush our teeth now. You're welcome to come with us. Or like, we're heading upstairs because we're going to get ready for bed. For us, this is what we're going to do. And like, you can come, or you can go pick a book and like, we'll find you in the bedroom kind of thing. Because it's just not, that's just not worth it.
Sure.
For me, anyways, like in the role I'm in, like it's just not a thing that's worth escalating over. Usually if there's things that have to happen, like for example, if we want to go to the park, and like we all want to go to the park, it's something the children have asked to do, for example, doesn't make it any easier necessarily to stop what you're doing and go to the park. So it's just, we've kind of just learned that there has to be like lead up, right? Like, hey, like let's make a plan after lunch, we're going to go to the park. And because of the PDA, often, even if that's the plan she wants, we'll get to the point where we've had lunch and we're going to start to prepare to go to the park, and that like aspect of herself will have to throw up because it's about equalizing, right? She needs, her nervous system needs to feel in control of the situation, not in like a manipulative, nasty way, just in a like, that's what makes her feel safe way.
Sure. Yeah.
So it's very, very like almost for sure something would come up where she would be like, okay, well, yeah, but I have to do this thing first.
Right.
That thing could be a 5-minute thing, or it could be an hour thing. And you kind of just have to roll with it because it's going to the park. Like, it's just not worth escalating things over. And then if we don't go to the park, we don't go to the park. I guess, sometimes that's just the reality of the situation. My daughter is super, super flexible and has like a really deep, as much as a child can. We're very open with her, and like we talk openly with like, why does my niece have different expectations? Why, can't she do some of the same things that Rena can do? Like, and so we're just pretty transparent with her about it, and she is able to understand that like it's not just like, that we're just letting her do or not do things. There's a reason, and the reason is because it's what she needs. And that's just always been enough for our daughter to just be like, well, that's what she needs. Like, oh, okay. And sometimes it sucks, and sometimes it means that we do things differently. Like, we'll do things apart, or, but often
a lot of divide and conquer.
Sometimes, yeah, because that's just how it is, right? But yeah, I think now we've been kind of on the journey, together since, and I think we've got a pretty good like rhythm and routine and really good communication with everybody. So that's kind of always becoming easier. And the kids are, getting older now too, which just helps because they're just able to express themselves differently and explain what's happening a little bit more clearly in ways that we're able to understand a little bit better.
Yeah. I found a lot of success this week, actually, in asking at bedtime, like, what's your plan for bedtime? Instead of, hey, you need to go to bed, which it used to be. All right, it's bedtime, let's go. And they'd be like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And it'd be chaos. But then this week, things have gotten a little different because, like, we're watching baseball for the first time, basically ever, with the Blue Jays going deep into the playoffs type of thing. And so they're up a little bit later. So I've been more, hey, when are you going to go to bed? Tell me when you're ready, I've said a couple times. And that's been super successful. And I did it last night for the first time, too. At bath time is always an issue. And I said, when are you planning to have your bath tonight? Like, what time are you planning to have your bath? And I got the best response I've had maybe ever. It was like, I'm going to go at this time. I'm like, great. And it was so much easier. Instead of like, hey, it's bedtime or bath time, it's bedtime. Go do this now. Finish that up. It was, what's your plan? And using it in that way felt really good to me and them. And also their response was fantastic too. So
for sure, it was a win-win. Yeah, and I think that's tricky. Like, especially, I think that's a super common struggle, like with the people I know personally and just sort of autism community more broadly. Like, especially with children, bathing, teeth brushing, like all of those sort of tasks, bedtime, like they're pretty common trigger points for a lot of people, especially young people. And I, again, in the role of aunt, like even if I'm, we're in like a sleepover situation or something and I'm the de facto parent, like I'm still not the parent. I'm very cognizant of that because like I know, because I'm very close with, with my sister-in-law, and like I know what a deep struggle that is for them, because you're, as a parent, like I, with my own daughter, like of course, like you want your kid to have good like personal hygiene because it's healthy for them, like for their physical self, right? But it's also such a struggle when you're trying to support like your child or a loved one that has like autism or any of these other things. Sometimes it's just not possible. Like sometimes for a while, and like as a parent, I know that's just from watching like what a struggle that is, because you're again wrestling with those shoulds, wrestling with those like, okay, but you're supposed to, like as a parent, like you're supposed to make sure your kid brushes their teeth every night and showers whatever 3 times a week, or whatever it is, and sometimes it's just not possible, and you have to weigh like the mental emotional health versus the physical health. Like, okay, is not taking a shower going to, like, it might, forcing them to take a shower might really harm their mental emotional state and can break trust and can really set you back. And like, what's the physical consequence? Well, they didn't shower. so it's kind of trying to weigh that out and wrestling, I think, with your own, like, even just for me as an aunt, like when I'm in those situations, trying to just check my own self all the time, because I'm a very should driven person, which is not, I don't know, in my own personal reflections on myself, it's not a great thing. It's not my strongest attribute. It's something I work on, trying to be like more, just like more intentional, I guess, instead of just, operating on like you have to do these things. But, trying to, like, the concept of radical acceptance was something that both my friend and my sister-in-law, both who have children on the autism spectrum and both with PDA, actually, really have had to work at. And it's one thing to read about it, the concept of just really, like, you have to meet people where they are. You just have to, like, you have to get rid of the shoulds. You have to accept what's happening now and just move forward with what you have. And that's really hard. Like, it's really, really hard. Because it's not how we were taught to, certainly not how I was parented, and it's definitely not how I was taught to parent.
I don't think there's too many people that were taught to parent that way or raised that way, unless you're called a hippie, right? And you're allowed to go do whatever you want. Mm-hmm. But the reality is, I think we're all told what we should be doing, when we should be doing it, how we should be. And it is challenging because you are constantly trying to deal with, okay, they need to do this. They need to brush their teeth. They need to be prepared for adulthood. They need to be able to do things autonomously, independently. But then, does it really matter right now? Like, choose your battle type of thing?
Yeah.
Do we need to fight every single night about brushing teeth or having a bath or whatever it is? And my wife Meg's really good at asking sometimes of, but why are we asking them to do this? That's a good point. Like, what
Sure.
is the point? And you have to kill those should monsters sometimes. And, like, the more of those should monsters that you kill, that's a weird analogy, but, like, you feel better.
Yeah, well, because you have to ask, and, like, that's a question. Yeah, like, another way of looking at it is, am I asking you to do this for you or for me?
It's always me.
It's almost always. It's almost
yes.
always me. Like, yes, am I asking you to clean up the blanket because that actually matters, or just because it matters to me? And, like, that's also tricky because, like, as a parent or aunt or caregiver, like, your needs absolutely matter, but it's really hard to weigh them against, okay, but does it matter in comparison to the cost? What's the cost? What's the cost of having somebody meet that need? And, like, yeah, when you, over time, it becomes easier to quickly identify moments when, like, it's just not even worth asking because the cost is not worth it. And sometimes it is. Sometimes it is worth it to see if you can, push through that a little bit and get to where you need to go. But it's, I think that's a really tricky thing too. It's like, I don't know really anything about, like the ego, the id, like that Freudian sort of, but, like, I think it's a lot of getting out of your own way and trying to figure that out. And I think, as my niece and my daughter being the same age, like, they're I think officially we can say they're into, like, their pre-teen years. Like, they're, growing quickly. They're very independent, they're not little children that you can, like, you can't make them really do anything.
No.
Not really. Like, because you're not physically, like, not, like, they're almost as big as me. Like, Like
Yeah.
it's, and not that I'm advocating for physically forcing children to do things, but like when you have a teeny toddler, like you can pop them in a bath, right? But like that's
Or
not
when they're
an
be like,
option.
or they're being fierce and they're being violent and they're teeny tiny, and you got to bear hug them. You got to,
Yeah.
in some ways, stop them from hurting
Yeah.
themselves. This is a debate with my wife and I too about like damaging the home. Like, do we
Sure.
just let the meltdown happen? And I've been saying this week specifically, I'm like, well, he can have a meltdown. I'm not asking him not to feel his feelings, but I don't want him to damage my home. So, and then I get tired, frankly, of having to clean it up all the
Yeah.
time. So the other day I stepped in and I looked at him. He looked at me from across the room because he was mad. And then he like looks at me dead in the eyes and he grabs these markers and he throws them all over the floor. And I'm like, don't do that. Don't wreck my home. And I didn't say it any louder than that. And he lost his mind. He was so upset.
Sure.
Full meltdown after that. He told Meg that I was yelling and this and that. And I was just like, that's not what happened. And I think, my other son wasn't there for that one. But anyways. And then in hindsight, I was like, did that matter?
Right.
That one was
Yeah.
tricky. But then there's also times too, going back to what I was originally talking about, like when they're little and they're trying to hurt themselves, they're trying to damage things. They're also like, you got to worry about yourself, sure, but then you got another kid. You have your daughter to protect as well when they're fired up, right? So you get to the point where like, okay, you have to kind of contain them, keep them away. And now my son's, he's not too big, but like he's big, he's taller.
Sure. It's not
Right?
a toddler.
He's 10 years old. He's not a toddler. You can't just like quick grab him. So like now he takes a swing or he's violent. Like it hurts. Like it's not a little toddler punch or something, right? So it is a challenge to kind of balance and deal with all that. And thinking a lot about what you said of their perception of situations where they understand that, okay, these people are expecting me to do something, and that's triggering. But then also they're very aware of this shouldn't be so hard
Yeah.
for me. And like my son's at the same age, it sounds similar to your niece where it's, I know that this shouldn't be so difficult, and I'm irritated with myself because I'm having this challenge.
Absolutely. And I think, yeah, again, like based on conversations that I've had, like and even just trying to put myself in that position, like with certain specific things, like I would imagine that conflict would create a lot of shame and a lot of just feeling really crappy about yourself because you don't want, again, like I know my niece, like she doesn't want to cause disharmony. She doesn't want to cause
No.
harm to things, people, feelings. Like that's just not who she is. But she, does sometimes, and like that, I'm sure sits very heavy on her because it's in conflict with like, yeah, with like the core of who she is, like with her heart, right? And that's really hard. It's hard to watch, and it's hard because even just the way we can talk about it, like I can't have direct conversations with her about sometimes about how she's feeling, but like generally speaking, no, not so much, because that's a very high pressure situation. That's a very,
Sure.
it's very vulnerable. It's very, it causes her to have to reflect on what's happening. And I'm sure that's very stressful to try and weed through all of those things. And so it's also been interesting for me, like, we're a very, like, physically affectionate family. Like, we're big huggers, kissers, like, snugglers. But she is when she is.
Yeah.
And the rest of the time she is not. And it's very much the kind of thing where I had to really learn to just, like, completely step back. And there was, like, a good long period where there were just no You know, it was like a high five goodbye kind of situation, and like you just have to be okay with that, which generally speaking I was like, it's, you know, kind of feel like bummed out, like I wish I could have a hug, but it's so interesting to see over time, like building that trust and respecting those boundaries that she's setting. Like now she will hug me, now she will come up just voluntarily and give me like a hug and tell me like, you know, how much she appreciates a certain thing, or like for the longest time she was completely, I would say, incapable of saying thank you for things like that. Just it's an expectation, right, that you say thank you when somebody does something for you. She just couldn't do that. But like now she can, not always, but like often she will say like, wow, thank you for doing that, or like, and it's so nice to just see, like, not even just in terms of like that's a growth thing for her, like that's fantastic, but like it's to me those are all those signs of like, okay, what we're doing is working. Like the way that I have approached this relationship, which is completely different than I am with like my other nieces and nephews or my own child, is in fact, like I was right. Like I read that right. I got those cues. I understood what she was telling me, and I did the thing or didn't do the thing, and now she's able to like come to me with some of that like affection or those words, which is just so, yeah, it just feels really rewarding and really like, okay, great, because it's so important to me to be like a safe place for her, like whether she can talk to me about things or not, like just someone that she knows she could come to, and that I have some sense of understanding, that I get her at least a bit, like at least some, because yeah, like that's, I don't know, like that's who I always wanted to be as an aunt, and I feel like I'm pretty good with all my other nieces and nephews, and my daughter has such a beautiful relationship with her aunts, and like, yeah, so that was really important to me. And it's hard to like wait, like it really tests your patience, because you have to just like just wait just keep waiting.
It's fascinating that to really connect with somebody, usually with autism, or I'll speak for my son, and it sounds a little bit like your niece as well, to make that connection, you actually have to almost disengage and do a lot less. And you try to do nothing, if that makes sense. Instead of trying to be like, to get more in. And like, I think that's an older generation's thing of, okay, I need to do something, so I need to like go talk to them or get in their face or tell them. And I'm the one that can convince, no, stop. That's how you get to where you need to be, is putting your ego aside, killing that should monster, and disengaging to engage more.
Yeah, it's very counterintuitive. And again, it's like, yeah, checking in with like, okay, well, when I'm asking this kid for a hug, like, is it for them or is it for me? And it's like, it's for me. It's because I want the hug because that's how I receive love. But like what I, had to learn is like, well, actually just the fact that she's choosing to sit next to me on the couch, or the fact that she asked me to make her toast, that's love. That's trust. Like that's her saying like, okay, you're on my team. I'm tapping you in. Like, and it's like, okay, oh my God, I gotta get the toast right. Like, I hope I don't, toast it too much or not enough, or put too much butter or something like. But because then it's like, that's how I'm going to show you that I'm like accepting your little pebble. Like here's your toast pebble. Like, yeah, it's very. It's great. Like that aspect of things is great because it really does kind of get you to step outside of yourself and really, like, we talk a lot about like consent, like just in our family in general, like with our own daughter, like about consent and setting boundaries and like saying what you need and like I like to think we like walk the walk and talk the talk, but like, there's always room for improvement for sure, because we also have all these expectations, and but with her, with my, like her being my niece, like you really have to walk the walk. Like you can't, you have to stay the course, right? Like you really have to just commit to the approach, and yeah, and just keep checking in. Like I'm checking in, you know, with her mom about like what are we doing? What are we doing in this situation? Because, or sometimes we'll not decompress. What's the word? Yep, it's gone. But anyways, we talk about a
De-escalate?
situation after. No, you'll know the word
Ah,
when I
sorry.
explain this situation to you. You'll be like, oh. um, when after something has happened, right? Like after I've noticed like we've done something and that was clearly not the right choice because I've clearly visibly irritated my niece, or she's upset now. Um and I'll go check in with her after and be like, "Hey, like this is what happened in this situation. Like from
Yeah.
my perspective, I did this. I can hear now playing it back in my head. I was a bit sharp because I was probably frustrated, and like this is how she has reacted, and like,
Right.
you know, that we used to handle that situation the way I just handled it, but it's clearly not working anymore. So like what's changed? What are you doing differently now? Like what, like it's just constantly trying to be open to hearing how things have changed and accepting that obviously like as kids grow up, they're, you know, they change. Like
Right.
they're gonna
Would
have
you
different
say
needs.
that you have a debrief with your sister-in-law?
Debrief. There it
Thank
is.
you.
Debrief. Yes. I knew you'd know the word. Yes,
Nailed it.
exactly. Sometimes that's like totally it, or often even with my daughter, like if it was a big day or like there were some big feelings that happened,
Yeah.
very rarely do they have like any kind of conflict between them, but like, you know, sometimes I can see like people's feelings are a bit meh. Yeah, to do the same thing with her and be like, hey, like, how was this hangout? Like, was that
Hmm.
too much alone time, just the two of you? Like, did you need us to kind of step in and like, you know, just smooth the road a little bit for you guys, or like offer some, you know, guidance on like or suggestions on what we could be doing, or because sometimes, you know, my daughter goes to public school and has a larger social circle and just different inputs than my niece who doesn't attend like public school. And so they're the same age, but they're also, you know, they have very different day-to-day lives, like just in terms of
Yeah.
what they do, who they interact with, and what information they're getting. Um, and so that's been interesting too recently to try and see them come together and like blend, like find those overlapping areas where they're still kind of on equal footing, and where can they, like where are they diverging, and like how is that going to happen over the next few years, because
Yeah.
their lives will continue to look very different as they get older and there's more independence. And so that's always something that I know I think about and I talk a lot about with my niece's mom too. Like, how are we gonna keep creating space for them to come together as they get older, and like just by virtue of not being in the same space and having very different like social lives.
Yeah.
Like, how are we gonna keep that bond? Because we know they want it, but it's like, how do you facilitate that?
Sure. Has she ever gone to public school? When you say she doesn't go to public school, like, is she going to school or what's she doing?
So currently, no, she doesn't go to school. She went to public school when she was, I think she did um, kindergarten, and then it was COVID.
Yeah.
Like our kids were Jake or SK, second
Yeah.
half of SK when the first lockdowns happened.
She's
Um,
11, you said?
yeah,
Okay, yeah. So Beck's 10. So
yeah,
it's basically about the same.
give or
His
take, right?
JK, yeah, his
Yeah,
JK was interrupted by COVID, which sends it's super challenging for everybody. Obviously, we can.
yeah,
I don't know if anybody wants to talk about that, but it was very challenging for autistic people. Not to speak for them, but like socially, everything got super confusing, didn't know what to do. They're told this is what they should be doing. They were masking literally and figuratively. They were trying to figure out this world as little kids and then thrown into that chaos. So
Yeah, exactly. So the kindergarten had been very tumultuous. That was very challenging
yeah,
for her. I mean, a kindergarten classroom is chaos at the best of times.
yeah,
And then add in, some at the time undiagnosed, not really understood, or I don't even know if there was really any like suspicion of any neurodivergence specifically at that age.
sure,
And then COVID, so school kind of went, everybody was either online or whatever. Online school was a hard pass basically for them. They tried, absolutely, and but it was very difficult. It was difficult for us too, but a different kind of difficult. And then I can't remember if they did. She has gone back to public school a couple of times, but usually for very short stints. It's just, even with they've had some good luck, I think, with like really supportive school administrations and whatnot, but it just takes so much, as I'm sure with kids
yeah,
in public school, like so much advocacy, so much work on the part of the parent to try and like get that information across and get the supports that are needed. And even then, resources are so limited, and it just never was quite enough. And then I think probably for my niece, autism combined with PDA, the structure of school, bells ringing,
yeah.
specific time you have to eat, you've got this much time to eat, you've got to be like, it's a nightmare. Like it's like a PDA nightmare. Like every
It literally
single
would be
aspect,
like every single thing about school would be, not to
a
just repeat
demand.
what you said, a PDA nightmare. Everything,
Yeah,
every element of it.
every single thing. We're doing a worksheet, you have to get the worksheet out, get the pencil out, listen to the teacher, write that. Every single one of those is like bing, bing, bing. So that was not great. That was not great for her. That was very difficult. It made things really difficult after school, before school. Like it was just because there was not enough downtime, like to regulate again.
Yeah, yeah,
And then
yeah, yeah.
they did have the opportunity to have her at like for lack of a better term, like an alternative school, like a school where things were much more flexible, and like it was specifically for children who had various sort of neurodivergent profiles.
Yeah.
Which I think was like a mixed bag. Like I think in some ways it was super great. Like there was lots of good social opportunity, lots of, it was totally worth trying. I think some of it was really positive for her, but ultimately she decided that was not a thing she wanted to continue with. So
Yeah.
that is the end of that for now. So it's again now just like a lot of work for her parents, primarily her mom, who's like a work at home, like she has another job but she works from home, right? So she's like the primary
Ooh.
day-to-day caregiver. Um,
So she has a
and
job and she's juggling that too.
yeah, yeah,
Ooh,
and then
that's
her
tough.
father,
Really
who
tough.
also like they all live together, like has a
Yeah.
like an off site like at the office, or like kind of job like out of the home, right? So he's also working. Um, but they also have this extremely intelligent, curious child who wants to do things, who wants learning opportunities and life opportunities, and to have friends, and to have, to go to
Yeah.
the zoo, and to go to music, like to do this, that, and the other thing. But to facilitate those things is very time consuming, and very, like, I'm just constantly so in awe of the incredible amount of effort and like perseverance that that they put into creating those opportunities for her. Because it sounds simple, like, oh, she wants to go to the zoo, but like it's not that simple, because what you want and what you are able to do in any given specific day, depending on your nervous state, like, are often two very different things. And so it can feel like an entire, an entire day's work just to get out the door to go to the zoo, right? And by the time that happens, maybe they don't want to anymore. Like, it's very, it's a lot of, I watch her like plan for these opportunities to create space, to create time, adjusting work schedule, adjusting life, arranging dog care, blah, blah, blah. And then, my niece maybe just isn't able to follow through, or by the time that they are, have everything in place, she's no longer in a state where she can leave the house, or they'll get all the way to where they're going and something is not imbalanced, right? Like something has changed, or the weather has changed, or just her mood has changed, or and then it's to go home. So it's a lot of like work to create these opportunities, and it's like a real, not even 50-50, but like, it's a real toss-up whether it's gonna happen or not, which I think is kind of part of that radical acceptance thing, right? Like, you have to be willing to do it and for it to not happen, but like the output to create the opportunity is so high. I'm just it's really impressive, like, to watch the parents that I know with children like on the spectrum and with PDA, just work so hard to create opportunity, because really that's all you can do, I think, is you can, kind of with any child, but like specifically, with these kids, like, you can create the opportunity, but whether they can engage with it is completely out of your hands. So it's a lot of like build up sometimes for try again, but like it's tiring, I think.
I like that radical acceptance idea because I relate to everything you just said school wise, and especially like going to things like events or whatever, because everything involves more time and energy than we thought it was going to. It's not just like you said, oh, let's go to the park or let's go to the zoo and like hop in a car. It's okay, let's go to the zoo a week from now and present that opportunity. And then the week of, like, you're kind of doing check-ins, like, is this what you want? How can we make this better for you? And that day, like, we've got another kid that we got to bring along, but that we bring along. And sometimes it might be we're driving in separate cars, because now if Beckett is like, okay, I was there for 10 minutes at the time of my life, but now I'm done and I got to go right now. That's not fair for Foster, and vice versa also. So we have to constantly be juggling that, and it's fascinating. But the idea of the radical acceptance is good, because once you get it through your head of, yes, you want to present that opportunity, and whenever they're done, that's fine. It's when you start to, let's say, force, should do this, the ego gets in the way. That's always when it becomes a problem. And then I'm thinking, I want to talk to you more about this school thing, but I don't want to talk forever. I'd love to talk forever, but like, I could continue talking forever about this. And the school element's super interesting and really relatable right now, to some stuff that we're thinking about as well, where yes, it's hard on the parents. Yes, it's advocating. Yes, it's hard on the teachers that are great and they're accommodating, but we're forcing someone into a situation where they don't want to be. Why are we doing that? So it's not really about us. It's more about, if we can continue like the theme of, should he be having a bath, say, every 3 days or every day? Yes, but should we even be considering that? Why are we forcing him to do that? That's where we are with school right now, where it sounds extremely similar to your niece's story of JK was hard, and the separation anxiety was hard, and then COVID made it hard, and then back in school was hard, and now it's everything, right? And now he's, I think, riddled with anxiety right now. So people trying to make all these plans to get him into school and do this and that, and it's like, we're not going to force him to go. And we're actually in a really good spot right now, where we told him before this year, if you're in charge of your attendance, you want to go, you go. You want to go for an hour, you go for an hour. You don't want to go, you don't have to go. And it's been good, but there has been still on like different people of, well, let's get him to stay more. Like, no, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
That's not going to help. Right. And like, yes, he's not having meltdowns at school right now because he's masking so heavily, and he comes home and he's stimming like crazy, or he's having meltdowns at home, and that's where it's happening. And just because it's not happening at school or wherever else you are, like, doesn't mean things are easy for him when he's back home in his safe place. So we've been
Yes.
talking a lot about deschooling or unschooling or whatever the trendy word is, frankly, of should he be at school? Does he want to be at school? And I've had things even years ago of he should be in school because I was scared about him, how he would act, frankly, socially, like communicating with people, engaging with people. Would he know how to talk? Would he know how to be friends with somebody? All that kind of stuff. He has all that though. He's like he's good socially, right? And like a lot of kids aren't, a lot of people aren't, a lot of adults aren't,
Yeah.
right? But like he gets all that, and he's fine with that. And he's also a super duper smart kid. So I think back on when we were kids and people would say, oh, he's having a hard time at school because he's bored, right? And he's too smart or something. But I don't know if he's too smart, but he's a really, really, really smart guy. And I'm convinced if we gave him like the math curriculum for whatever grade he's in right now, grade 5, I should probably know 5. He's in 5. Yeah, yeah, 5. He'd have it done in a couple weeks and be like, all right, I'm done with this. So this year, especially since we've been listening to him more, either taking him to school, and he might not even get off the front bench with us. And I say us, it's entirely my wife, Meg. Like, she'll take him into the school. She sits there. He's either going in or he's coming right back out and they're heading home. Some cases, like on Friday, he's like, last Thursday was his first basically full day at school. He stayed almost the entire day for the first time all year. And then Friday, he's like, I'm not going. Yesterday was a big day. And you see him, and he's not at home just on a tablet or whatever. And, like, I shouldn't say that also, because, like, tablets are great ways for people to regulate, especially him. He loves it. But he's not at home just letting his brain rot. Let's put it that way, right? Mm-hmm. He's at home, and he started watching, like, National Geographic documentaries.
Nice.
And he's like, he loves history and Greek mythology, and he's super good at math, and he can read way more than I can read and all this stuff. And he's really, really, really start to think about like that should monster with school, and you really start to wonder why.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's I mean, I know it's something that like, if it was my child, I know I would struggle deeply with that, because I was raised in a family where school was like super important and academics were super important, and but I know what I've seen with these two young ladies, specifically my friend's child and my niece, removing them from school, like just listening to, in their specific cases, was 100% the right decision for them in terms of their ability to stay regulated, and like, and then after a period of time, was different for each of them, but quite a long period of time, like year 2 years, like quite a long time, they were in such a better place in terms of that, like, nervous system activation. Like, they were more consistently regulated, not always, but like more consistently regulated. And then that's when, with my niece, for example, like, she really started, to show really specific interests in, like, for a while it was reptiles and painting. All of a sudden she's become really wildly into painting for a good long time. And like, but it also really does require that flexibility for the whoever is the primary parent or primary caregiver, whoever's with them, to pick up on that and like, and run with it, while it's an interest, like whether it's coloring or melting crayons or, whatever, like, doesn't really matter what it is, everything has educational value. or just creative value, or it's just an interest. But it's yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things that I have learned, like being, I'm like one foot in, one foot out, right? Because I'm not the parent, I'm an aunt, and I'm not there all the time. I would say I'm fairly involved, but like, is to watch these parents and like how they've adapted their lives in a way that's going to create that like that environment for regulation so that opportunities can be accepted, right? Like, but the amount of patience and perseverance and like just really keen observation that it takes is like, it's really mind blowing to me. Like I'm just so impressed with them absolutely all the time, because it's like, wow, okay, like not that like it's not a comparison, it's not about that, but like just the ability that I have to kind of take certain things for granted with my kid, just because she has a different capacity for many things, is just seems downright luxurious sometimes, you know? Like I don't have to pay that close attention. I don't have to be that dialed in all the time.
Yeah.
Which I think really is like underappreciated for parents of children who have autism and or any of these other sort of neurodivergent profiles. Like, yeah, there needs to be way more resources for parents and like gold stars for everybody, because like it's incredible. Like just the patience piece. Like we are such an impatient species.
I think it's really cool what you've done. I don't know if you're selling yourself short a little bit, because I think you probably don't even know how many people outside of like the autism community, like you're in it but you're not, like you're saying, would just not listen, honestly, and not really, not that they don't care, but they wouldn't have these questions for themselves. They wouldn't have these conversations with the parents and the caregivers. And I don't know exactly how to articulate it, but I think you're a very unique, special person for you to take that much care and thought into that. And the bit that I know about you, I feel like it truly is genuine and it's come to you naturally. For you to be that empathetic, and I think it's pretty special. And I think I don't know what to say other than thank you. And I won't speak. Well, I will speak for your sister-in-law and your niece, and I'm sure they're very thankful to you, and to have you as a part of their life. So thank you.
Oh, that's really sweet and kind. And yeah, like I just do my best. I love them, right? So I do my best. And I heard somebody say one time, you know, it's like if you found out your loved one, you know, had like diabetes, like you would learn about it and you would like learn recipes to make sure that they could like eat food that was safe and stuff. Like it's really just kind of the same thing. Like I think people fluff off like, oh, they're autistic.
Yeah.
Like cuz they maybe just don't understand, or maybe just don't don't, I think it's fair to say, just don't understand like the breadth of ways that changes like just a whole family's sort of dynamic, like how they are, how they have to be in the world. And I think it just really, like if you kind of took it the same way as like, well, if we just do a little learning and like just learn some recipes, like you can help
Yeah.
take care of people.
Well, thank you for learning the recipes, I will say. I think it's cool. You're the first person that I've spoken to on this podcast, at least, about that's not a parent or diagnosed themselves. Yeah. So it's an interesting perspective. I actually would probably like to talk to more people about, but it's cool that you're able to do this. So thank you so much. And
Yeah.
last question, unless you have anything else you want to go on or rant about, not that you've ranted, but what's one thing that you would want people to know about autism?
I think it's kind of twofold thing. I think one, and I know I've heard this said before elsewhere, but like if you can, step back and observe and like make space for your autistic loved one to show you who they are and like how they're perceiving things, there's such an opportunity for just learning like a new way of looking at the simplest things, just from leaves to interpersonal relationships, like the way that you can perceive things. And I think just patience. I think it's like, to me, loving someone who is autistic just requires like an extra layer of patience, which is really just a great thing to nurture in yourself overall. But it opens up, like, when you can be patient and still and listen and just observe, like, you can just learn so much, not just about the autistic person that you're loving, but about like literally everybody in the sphere that you're sharing. Because I think, we go too fast and we're very impatient, definitely myself included. So I think that would be the two things that come to mind.